I grew up in a quaint small town. Everyone knows each other, no one locks their doors. My brother and I spent many afternoons over at my aunt and uncle's house on the other side of town, playing with our cousins and the other kids in that neighborhood. Next door lived the Morrises, who had a boy. His name was Carl. Carl was my brother's age. Carl's cousin, George. He was my age and spent a lot of time over at Carl's house, so we all knew each other well. Carl had a much older brother. His name was Christopher. He was about 10 years older than our group of neighborhood friends, just graduating high school when we were around 10. Christopher, as an aside, could be on a horror story anytime on his own. But that's a totally different story on itself. You see, Christopher eventually joined the army in an attempt to get his life together.
Whoa!
That's what the army's for now, right? It's not about defending the country. Oh, no. It's a last-ditch rehab for boys the system gave up on years ago. You see, when George and I were seniors in high school, Christopher was killed while deployed in Afghanistan, and we feel awful for that. We all do. It's bad. We feel awful for his family, even though Chris really put me off and I barely knew him. It was just an awful, tragic ending and thing. Furthermore, my town is very Republican, and given the circumstances of Chris's death, the outpouring of grief took on a political charge, as it often does. You see, Carl deeply resented the jingoistic fervor that became mixed up with his death, which made it harder for him to grieve for a brother he had a complicated and troubled relationship with. But George reacted differently.
Yes! It's like...
Because grief isn't enough anymore, you've also got to pledge allegiance to the war machine, or else you're disrespecting the troops. Insanity!
I mean, come on!
So it looks like he was on the forefront of the pro-war beautification of Chris and harbored a lot of rage. Which, once again, I get, but he had lost family in a tragic, sudden way. And George was over the top. Anyone left of Ronald Reagan, and anyone with the slightest misgivings about war, Muslims, and anyone sympathetic to Muslims, was personally responsible for Chris's death.
Whoa!
There it is! When you're grieving, reason dies first. And what's left? Rage. Aimless, untethered rage looking for a target. And lucky you if you voted Democrat. Anyways, it got intense. Eventually, it escalated to the point where he started to make real threats, and the administration suspended him for a week. And as time went by, people dealt with his grief. The situation calmed down. The political tension had faded, and things returned to normal. But not for George. TLDR, George's cousin Chris is killed in Afghanistan, and he responds with insane, bitter rage against liberals.
Whoa!
After graduation, I attended college in the nearby big city, and wasn't home very often. So unfortunately, a lot of this is rumors and incidents with friends from home who stayed there post-high school. My only real personal run-ins are limited to Facebook screeds and getting the stink eye from him when I'm home and go to the local dive bar. He's apparently learned, because after his suspension, to keep his anti-pacifist crusade under wraps, but there's been a pattern of vandalism directed at liberals and pacifists. Cars keyed, tires slashed, bumper stickers scraped off. During the first Obama campaign in 2008, someone went around town in the dark of night and defaced or destroyed every Obama yard sign in about a 2-mile radius. Think about it. Every Obama yard sign. No one's caught him, but sure, everyone's sure George is behind it. Oh, but hey, if you scream loud enough, you can do anything. Vandalism is patriotic now. Threats, righteous. Just slap a Trump flag on it and everything is all fine. Just imagine if Joe Biden supporters did the same. Just imagine if Kamala Harris supporters went around defacing Trump signs. Imagine the outrage. But we won't get it. Where is the mainstream media on all of this? Where were they? No one's talking about it. No one's asking the real questions here. But anyways, he's so angry the other angry conservatives think he's a little out of his mind, and many believe that he's the one doing it too. Look at how the tables have turned. Anyways, I don't want to give the impression he's unmitigated crazy. Shockingly, he's a fairly normal guy. He has a good job where he makes good money and is regarded as doing good work. Volunteers. Had a long-term girlfriend for a while, but I think it's no coincidence that she broke it off with him after a couple months before this incident. He's also known for getting angry drunk at the bar and shouting at people. They've had to remove him a couple times. And in the biggest incident, 6 to 7 months before my run-in, George assaulted a guy called Sparky.
Oh, yes!
Because of course he did, because nothing honors the fallen quite like leaving the beating shit out of their best friend in a bar parking lot.
It's so unbelievable.
You see, Christopher had been Sparky's closest friend before he died. Sparky had gone in the opposite direction of George. He was now an outspoken anti-war liberal, and had been running his mouth about how George Bush had killed his best friend when George decided to beat him into the ground. The police were called, of course, and George was hauled off, but Sparky decided not to press charges. So TLDR, George continues to be aggressive and angry towards the liberals. Now, my hometown's pretty right-leaning, but there's a solid, if small, liberal/Democrat scene too. The liberal people like to hold these mini quote-unquote rallies in the park on the main street. And I call them rallies because they're really just politically themed family picnics, not actual rallies. Just like about 20 to 30 people in a park with slogan t-shirts and signs, sitting around eating sandwiches and shooting the shit and playing with dogs. You know, normal American stuff. Quite legendary to do these days, I might add, considering that we are living under a fascist regime. Anyways, my husband and I were staying in my parents' house this past summer while we were prepping to move overseas. I was really wanting to see everyone that I could before we left because I didn't know when I'd be back. And when hippy-dippy neighbor told me that there was a rally at the park that afternoon, I decided to go. The rally was great. It was perfect for hot weather, the mid-July, sunny and just wonderful. And I was having a catch-up with a high school friend I hadn't seen in years, Melissa, who happens to be the aforementioned Sparky's little sister. She had been doing quite well, actually. Got married to a lovely guy, had her first kid. And after a while, the baby wants to nurse, so as Melissa's situating him, I take a glance around the area. And my eyes land on George. My heart starts thumping and every hair on my neck goes up. I don't even know why, but he's just leaning against his car door, parked on the opposite side of the street, maybe around 15 feet down, smoking a cigarette and f***ing around on his phone. But I'm panicking. And then I notice it. It's July. Not a cloud in the sky and easily 90 degrees in the sun. And he's wearing a long, thick jacket. Now why would a man wear a winter coat in 90-degree heat? To stay warm or to stay armed? I'll let you guess. It's just so incongruous. All these people in shorts going for ice cream and he's dressed up for January wind. Why? Why is he wearing that jacket and why is it making me want to call 911 immediately? After a few minutes of trying to ignore the klaxons going off in my brain, I notice that he's glowering in the direction of the protest. And when he notices me looking, he looks back at his phone. Imagine being so triggered by a couple of liberal moms eating hummus in a park that you contemplate a one-man insurrection. This is where we are, folks. So he finishes off his cigarette, lights another one, and my hands are starting to shake and the sounds of friendly chatter around me grow distant. I didn't know what to do, but something had to be done. So I smiled big and waved, and I yelled out, "Hey, George!" His head snaps up. I wave and smile again. "George, come on over!" I wave him over. He gets on his feet and unsure, takes a couple steps in my direction. He hesitates and then slowly walks over to me. Hey. And then I say, "Hey, how've you been? It's been so long." And I felt worried that my feigned friendliness is too exaggerated. And he goes, yeah, good. So I hear you got this sick new gig now. How's that? I say. And he says, good. And so we continue like this, and I'm putting my best friendly smile. I'm pulling out my best small talk, the weather, my move, my local news going on, his job, childhood good times. I cross my arms over my chest so he wouldn't notice my hands are shaking. And then he answers in grunts and monosyllables. Oh, because he's caught. And he seemed crazy nervous, shifting from foot to foot. Eyes keep darting back to his car, and to the people around him and back. He keeps this, I think this is the most creepiest, most horrifying part, unconsciously touching his chest, like making sure something is still there. Hey, you ever watch someone check their coat like that? Not for gum, no, not for their phone. No, this is the kind of check that screams. Is it loaded? So, at one point, I went to hug him, and he pulled back so fast that you think I was covered in utter shit. And after about 5 minutes, but it seemed like an hour really, he blurts out abruptly, I gotta run, goodbye. It was the most syllables he uttered in the whole conversation. He turns, speed walks to his car, jumps inside, and speeds away. So I sighed with relief, and turned back to Melissa, who's finishing up nursing. I asked if she saw that and was as freaked out by it as I was. Yep, she says, so I go to ask to talk to her privately about it. She hands off the baby to her husband, and we go to a private corner of the park. And so I start rambling about the story, just to get them out of my head, and get a little validation from someone else. Was he really that creepy in that coat? Should I have been as alarmed and terrified as I was? And as soon as I mention him touching something inside his jacket, she sits down on the ground and bursts into tears. And through her sobs, part relief, part panic, I think she tells me that last night, her brother Sparky had received a phone call from George out of nowhere. They obviously hadn't been friendly for a while, and George had seemed hurried, a little frantic. Clearly something had going on in his mind. But all he ever told Sparky was he should under no circumstances go to the rally the next day, and that he should tell Melissa to stay away too. He wouldn't explain and hung up. So it looks like Sparky had decided not to go, but Melissa thought it was just George being George and went anyway. And so this is the part where we ask, did a man nearly commit a massacre and back out because someone waved at him? So both Melissa and I went home right after that. So you look at that and you think, on one hand, why is this person lecturing us on how to be patriotic? Someone who's never actually been a real patriot in his life, besides grifting and being indoctrinated by far-right figures and far-right fascist outlets. That's crazy. And then on the other level, the more deeper level, the more important level, you realize what a tragedy you just saw and heard. Here is someone who is profoundly troubled, who needs real help and care and empathy and love from the adults in his life. But he's not getting any of that. And this is what happens when you have no father figures growing up. Instead, he was carted out like a sideshow freak for the profit of others. What the hell, guys? I know George owns a gun or two. Hunting and shooting is a pretty popular hobby where I'm from, and it's a pretty common thing to own a gun and know how to use it. Did I just foil a mass shooting attempt? What happened here? It just couldn't be, could it? I just know that I've never felt like this. I just feel like I've never been in more danger in my entire life. I haven't heard from George or anything about him since. So what does it say about our country when grief, politics, and untreated rage all meet in the same small town? You get George, and you get silence. Because if this really was a mass shooting, foiled by a smile, no one's going to tell that story. Because it doesn't fit the script. It doesn't fit the narrative of the YouTube horror story algorithm. It's the things Mr. Nightmare and other big channels will not cover, because it doesn't help them. But here I am, and here we are. So, if you enjoyed this story and this new style of narrating horror stories by a real human, non-AI voice, and with this beautiful scenery, please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down your thoughts on what you think of this unbelievable attempt at what could have been. This is horrifying. We should be scared. At a time when the world is moving more towards a dangerous, polarizing, out of control place, the least we can do is to be careful when we go outside in crowded places, because anything can happen. But most important of all, check on your loved ones from time to time. Have a conversation with them. Talk to them. Make sure that they're doing okay. And genuinely care for them. I'm rambling here, but anyways, subscribe for more.